I prefer this black and white, but my PC is acting up. There's something wrong with the mic. I don't know whether it's drivers or what, So I ended up recording like 40 minutes, and when I clicked to actually play it and whatever, it was just silence. So yeah, I'm doing this on my phone. I think having made that other video has given me sort of like insight to make this uh, kind of shorter and straight to the point. And yeah, the the elephant in the room is land, and a lot of felt I've been neglecting this. There's been a lot of shade thrown around about this issue, and so yeah, I didn't get to speak about land because I was kind of thinking about how to approach it eventually. And there are different methods, and I want to sort of discuss this one method. And this one method is, from what I remember, from what I said before, is based on understanding why the land issue is considered emotional, because a lot of people consider it an emotional thing. The youth are disgruntled, they don't think it's emotional, but a lot do, and this has a lot to do with our history, right? It is the land issue is connected to the race, privilege, white privilege, or whatever kind of it's just mixed in that bowl. And I'll give South Africa as an example. When they had national reconciliation, one of the terms to actually make that happen was amnesty for the perpetrators. So they felt free to admit these things because they weren't really going to get punished for these things. So they could speak about it openly and clearly and whatever. They were very, very apathetic about it. I mean, if you watch those videos, you'll notice there wasn't a real sign of regret. Their attitude was they were given orders and they were doing their duties, right? So one can say that they were victims of their time, they were victims of their government, they were victims of their government's ideology. And a lot of people have been calling for national reconciliation as something to sort of fix some of the problems, including the land issue. And I think this is wrong. This is kind of looking at the national reconciliation that South Africa did. The big highlight from that most people neglect is that it was a complete failure. It failed to bring out the human aspect of the atrocities that were committed, right? The one thing that separates black suffering and racism towards black people, as opposed to different kind of racisms and all of that stuff, is that there is apathy when it comes to racism against black people. And this apathy has built over the years. I mean, let's not forget, black people were shipped off to America in slave ships in compartments that were completely inhumane. Some died, and the survival of the fittest thing was considered. If you're strong enough to live through it, then you get sold, right? And racism, we shouldn't forget, started as a class issue. When the first blacks arrived at the American shores, they started to help build America alongside the American peasants. And I do say peasants because I think, there was a lot of British influence, and they were the king's subjects, basically. Um, but in order to sort of segregate them and turn them into a much more controlled working force and tool, racism was invoked. All the failings were put on the black people, and they were dehumanized and devalued, and this went on for hundreds of years. Now, hundreds of years is a very long time for folks to just change within a small time frame. And this is because the black history, which is mostly black suffering, is mostly known by black people, mostly. And it ties into a lot of things from colonialism and all of that. It's all about making black people seem inferior and incapable. And that is very easy to do because the psyche of someone who couldn't really cheer victory is very easy to break. But let's be honest here. The war, that incident where Shaka Zulu um, beat some British amateurs, what they had was firepower. What Shaka Zulu had was a plan. What Shaka Zulu had was strategy, right? And he completely outsmarted them. Outsmarted them, right? Those rifles had those knife thingies at the at the end of it. So do spears. That's how spears work. So there is no way they can claim some sort of disadvantage unless they claim they were disadvantaged because they were less trained and less capable. So firepower made them win, right? And this is downplayed a lot. There's a lot of research into it about no, it took longer for them to reload and yada yada yada. Why didn't they use the knives and the what and the what? They lacked that skill, right? So those African strategist intellectuals are then put down in history due to the whole tribe concept as primitives that got lucky because they were willing to just die, right? It's a fact. If Shaka Zulu had firepower, guns, the British would have been defeated at every front. And much more, he would have colonized the entire Southern Africa and maybe more. He was that much of a strategist, right? As people hail Napoleon Bonaparte, that same or even more of an accolade goes to Shaka Zulu, right? So land is the issue, and we have like this really big um, let's call it, we have all sorts of information that we can draw from Zimbabwe. Now, Zimbabwe, the black people, right, who are the majority, lack land. Imagine this: you have someone with a puny plot, who plants tomatoes or whatever to go sell to market. Ne? And then you have someone with a lot of land who hires people like this individual trying to be an entrepreneur because the farm work doesn't really pay much of the bills, right? So when you look at how the world looked at this, was there any empathy or sympathy given to the people that lacked land in Zimbabwe? None. When a small minority of white people who were multi-millionaires, they were multi-millionaires to begin with, got stripped of their land, the world wept, the world cried. Why? Because black violence against black people has been desensitized to that extent because it has happened for so long. It's like the lynchings. You would find a black man hanged and you're in your little carriage and you just pass on by. But if you see a white man hanged, it catches your attention. Completely dehumanized about the human suffering. And this comes back home to us where I want to speak on, you know, on our land issue. Our land issue is an emotional issue because of the race ties that it has. Because some people have not accepted that the black government is in charge right now. The black government is in charge, and that they are citizens to this black government, right? And the only methods that will and can work is like one where the founding president is building a school at a farm, a school for kids, for farm kids who otherwise wouldn't have that opportunity. Number one, he is instilling value in them, he is educating them. Who benefits? The kids benefit, the country benefits, and even the farm owner benefits from this, right? So we need to humanize, we need to totally humanize our approach to the land issue and look at some of the bigots, especially the bigots who completely refuse to work with a black government simply because it's a black government. And that's just the truth. There are really good people out there. Seriously, there are really good people out there who these bigots make out to seem bad, right? Because as black people, right, as black people, we tend to emphasize and sympathize with black suffering, right? And the lack of empathy and sympathy from the Caucasian minority is what makes most black people volatile and react harshly. It's not really the claims of no, you guys are racist and yada yada yada. No, it's the how can you stand there and justify the disgusting things that were done. I don't care what you use to justify it. Some people say no, but black people have been killing each other all along. Okay, cool. But black people were not killing each other as monkeys or animals. No, black people were trying to conquer one another. That's what was happening. It was conquest, not annihilation, not killing for sports. Completely different. right? So the landowners who refuse to cooperate should face the wrath of the government. The government shouldn't be lenient. And by this, I mean sanctions. If you don't cooperate, then we will show you who is in charge. Because as it is, farm workers, people that work on farms, they are dehumanized. Their rights are not respected. So we need to make farms transparent. First of all, farms need to be transparent. Secondly, the rights of the workers. The workers need a platform where they can go and complain about the atrocities that are happening to them without having a backlash. Because most fear, if we do complain, if we do say this, then what will happen is that we'll get fired, and there goes your livelihood. So we need to protect them, and we also need to give them its constitutional protection as citizens and as workers contributing to the Namibian economy by all the stuff that they do on the farms. Our reconciliation should be reconciliation based. It should be practical reconciliation. Practical reconciliation. I'll give you an example of what happened in Cape Town. In Cape Town, a farm owner actually gave half of his farm to his workers that have worked on his farm for a really long time. So they basically run the farm. And what happens is the produce that they get, they sell, and they in turn get to keep the profit from that. That is empowering your fellow citizen. And apart from empowering your fellow citizen, you're producing for your country. And that's the humanity aspect that I'm talking about, is when you impose sanctions to the point where someone finally realizes that this is the government and they are a citizen, right? Because there is this leniency due to not wanting to seem like we are targeting people based on color, based on what happened in Zimbabwe, and this won't happen. That's why I'm saying sanctions. Sanctions is punishing someone because of their lack of cooperation, and that power the government has. The government has that power, right? So kicking them off farms and forcing them and yada yada yada, we don't want to do that. What we want is cooperation, but you cannot cooperate with people that have not been humbled. You cannot be cooperate with people that have not been brought into the phase of our new Namibia, because land distribution, most people think it's giving land to blacks. Let's be realistic here. There are lots of landless white people, and we are very aware of this, right? We are very, very aware of this. And there are lots of farms that produce goods that treat their workers properly and in a just manner, which in turn contributes to the country. We acknowledge this, but all let us all not support the bigots just because we want to support our ethnic group or whatever. That has to be cut out. Sanctions is forcing someone to the point where they have to negotiate. and this can be applied. The government has this power, and this is one, I say it again, this is one of the steps or the tools that the government can use in our land issue, because we want to take away the whole human aspect of it, the whole feelings and all of that stuff, and bring it to the point of economic and social sustainability. And the only way we can do that is to punish the bigots, to punish the non-participants. And there should be no apologies made for this. That's what I think about the land issue. Um, Part of what I think about the how we can tackle the land issue. You know, we need to show who's in charge. It's about time, because otherwise it will never happen. And I know, a lot of youth want land just to build houses, but understand I have different projects that I have to do, different things that I have to cater to, and the national land crisis is one of them, right? So, yes, this is talking about farms. Number two, let's start thinking about mega farms. In China they have mega farms, right? And we don't, because most farms lack equipment. As a developing country, investing in modern machinery for farming is one of the things that's really overlooked. As a developing country, conservation is one of the things that's really overlooked. Where else on this planet do you find our rhinos? Our elephants, our giraffes, our national natural treasures. We have to protect them, and we have to do that firmly, because protecting them is investing in them as well, right? So there are lots of things that need reform, lots of approaches that need reform. The willing buyer, willing seller wasn't working. Why? Because there wasn't any real pressure being applied on the so-called seller. Well, when all options have been exhausted, it's time to punish those who won't cooperate. Those who won't cooperate based on outdated ideologies, because the land issue is bigger than them. They are just individuals. This is our country.